The bright white lights of the medical bay hurt Kim Tae-ho's eyes as he slowly opened them. Everything felt strange and heavy. His body ached in ways he had never felt before. The ceiling above him was made of some kind of blue metal that seemed to glow softly. He tried to sit up, but his muscles felt weak and shaky. "He is awake," said a voice that sounded like clicking insects. Tae-ho turned his head and saw Dr. Velthari standing beside his bed. The alien doctor looked like a giant praying mantis with 4 arms and large black eyes that reflected the room's light. Her voice came from a small device on her chest that translated her clicking sounds into Korean. "How do you feel, Dr. Kim?" Velthari asked. Her head tilted to one side in a way. That made Tae-ho feel dizzy. "Confused," Tae-ho said. His voice sounded rough and dry. "What happened to me? How long was I out?" "You have been unconscious for 72 hours, Velthari said. She moved to a computer screen that showed strange symbols and numbers. "You were infected with the quantum virus during the research accident in Lab 7. Tae-ho's heart began to beat faster. The quantum virus was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. It killed everything it touched. No creature had ever survived it. The virus attacked DNA itself and tore it apart piece by piece. Death was certain within 6 hours. "That's impossible," Tae-ho said. He tried to sit up again and this time managed to get his back against the wall. "Nobody survives the quantum virus. Nobody." "Yes," Velthari clicked. "That is what makes this so interesting and frightening." The door to the medical bay opened with a soft hiss. Lee So-jin walked in carrying a cup of something that smelled like earth coffee. She was Tae-ho's research partner and had worked with him for 3 years on the space station. Her face looked tired and worried. "Tae-ho," she said. "Thank God. You're awake. I was so scared." She sat down in the chair next to his bed and put the cup on the small table. "So-jin, what really happened?" Tae-ho asked. "I remember working in the lab with the virus samples. Then everything went black." So-jin looked at Dr. Velthari before answering. "The containment field failed. You were exposed to the pure virus. For almost 10 minutes before we could get you out. We thought ... we thought you were dead. 10 minutes?" Tae-ho felt cold all over. "That should have killed me in seconds." "The virus did attack your body?" Velthari said. She pressed some buttons on her computer and a holographic image appeared in the air. It showed Tae-ho's DNA structure. "Look at this. Your genetic code was completely destroyed. Every cell in your body should have died." The image showed DNA. Strands that looked like broken chains. Then the image changed to show the same DNA, but now it looked different. The chains were whole again, but they had new parts that glowed with strange colors. "But something happened," Velthari continued. "Your body did something impossible. It rebuilt itself. Not just repaired, but improved. Your DNA now has sequences that do not exist in any known species." Tae-ho stared at the floating image. "What does that mean?" "We do not know," Velthari admitted. "You are the first being in galactic history to survive the quantum virus. Your survival breaks every law of biology we understand." The door opened again and Commander Brix entered the room. The security chief looked like he was made of living crystal. His body was clear and rainbow-colored, and when he moved, light danced across his surface. He was nearly 7 feet tall and had to duck to fit through the doorway. "Dr. Kim," Brix said. His voice sounded like music played on glass bells. "I need to ask you some questions about what you experienced during your unconscious period." "I don't remember much," Tae-ho said. "Just darkness and strange dreams." "What kind of dreams?" Brix asked. He moved closer to the bed and his crystal body made soft chiming sounds. Tae-ho closed his eyes and tried to remember. "I dreamed I was falling through space, but not just normal space. It was like falling through time itself. I saw stars being born and dying. I saw entire galaxies spinning like wheels, and there was something else. Something watching me." "Watching you?" So-jin asked. "What did it look like?" "I couldn't see it clearly," Tae-ho said. "It was huge and old and ... patient, like it had been waiting for something for a very long time. When I tried to look at it directly, everything went dark. Velthari and Brix exchanged glances. The alien doctor made rapid clicking sounds that her translator did not convert to words. "Is there something you're not telling me?" Teho asked. "The news of your survival has already spread to other stations and planets," Brix said. "Many species are very interested in meeting you. Some want to study you. Others see you as a threat to the natural order of things." "A threat? How am I a threat?" "Death is supposed to be final," Velthari explained. "It is the one absolute rule in the universe. But you have proven that rule can be broken. This frightens many beings," Sojin reached over and took Teho's hand. "There's more. 3 different alien governments have already sent messages asking about you. The Dominion wants to take you for military research. They think your immunity could be turned into a weapon. The Science Collective wants to study your genetic changes," Brix added. "They believe your new DNA could help them understand the fundamental nature of life itself. And the temple worlds think you are either a prophet or a demon," Velthari finished. "They want to either worship you or destroy you." Teho felt overwhelmed. 3 days ago, he was just a simple researcher studying alien bacteria. Now he was apparently the most important person in the galaxy. "I just want to understand what happened to me," he said. "I don't want to be anyone's weapon or test subject or prophet." "Unfortunately," Brix said, "what you want may not matter. Word of your existence is spreading faster than we can control it. Every major power in the galaxy will soon know about the human who escaped death." As if responding to Brix's words, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed and an automated voice announced, "Unknown ships approaching. All personnel to emergency stations." Brix's crystal body flashed bright blue. "They found us faster than expected," he said. He moved quickly toward the door. "Dr. Kim, I suggest you get dressed quickly. I do not think we have much time." Teho looked at Sojin, then at the strange DNA image still floating in the air. Whatever had happened to him in those 72 hours had changed everything. Not just for him, but for the entire universe. He had escaped death's grasp, and now everyone wanted to know how. In a place that existed between the spaces of reality, something ancient stirred. It had no true form, no body that could be seen or touched. It was older than stars, older than galaxies, older than time itself. It was death, and for the first time in countless eons. It felt something new. Curiosity. Death had watched over the universe since the first spark of life began. It had guided the end of every living thing, from the smallest bacteria to the mightiest space whales. Death was the final law, the one rule that nothing could break. Until now, a human had escaped. A simple, fragile creature from a young planet had somehow slipped through death's absolute grasp. This should not be possible. It had never been possible before. Death focused its attention across the void of space to the research station where Kim Tae-ho was still learning about his impossible survival. Through senses that existed beyond the physical world, Death studied the human. What it found made the ancient entity pause. The man's life force was different now. Where once there had been a normal pattern of energy that would eventually fade and die, now there was something new. The human's essence had somehow rewritten itself during those 72 hours of unconsciousness. It was still mortal, still human, but it had gained something that Death did not understand. For the first time in its endless existence, Death felt the need to investigate. Meanwhile, on the planet Earth, Park Jin-woo sat in his small office at Seoul National University. He was a professor of philosophy and spent his days thinking about the big questions of life and death. Today felt different somehow. He had been having strange dreams for 3 nights in a row. In the dreams, he saw a man he did not recognize floating in darkness. The man was Korean, about 30 years old, and he glowed with a soft light that seemed to push back against something vast and hungry. Jin-woo always woke from these dreams feeling like something important was happening somewhere far away. Jin-woo did not know that his dreams were caused by ripples in reality itself. Taeho's escape from death had created waves that spread across the universe, touching sensitive minds and causing visions in those who thought deeply about existence. Back on Research Station Nexus 7, Taeho was getting dressed in his small quarters, while Sojin waited outside. The alarms were still ringing and he could hear the sounds of people running through the corridors. He pulled on his standard research uniform and tried to ignore the way his hands were shaking. "Taeho, we need to hurry," Sojin called through the door. "Commander Brick says the ships will be here in less than an hour." Taeho opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The station felt different now. The other researchers and workers they'd passed looked at him with mixtures of fear, wonder, and worry. Word had spread quickly that he was the impossible survivor. "Where are we going?" Taeho asked as they followed the flow of people toward the main docking bays. "Brix has prepared an emergency shuttle," Sojin said. "We're going to try to get you away from here before those ships arrive." They reached the docking bay where Commander Brix was waiting beside a small, sleek spacecraft. His crystal body was flashing rapidly between different colors, which Taeho had learned meant the alien was very stressed. "Dr. Kim," Brix said as they approached, "I have bad news." Our communications team intercepted messages between the approaching ships. "There are 3 different fleets coming, not one. The Dominion military, a science collective research vessel, and something else we cannot identify." "Something else?" Taeho asked. "The 3rd ship does not match any known designs in our databases," Brix explained. "It appeared at the edge of our sensor range 30 minutes ago. It is not responding to any communications and seems to be just ... watching." Dr. Vilthari hurried over to them carrying a medical bag and a small device that looked like a metal bracelet. "Dr. Kim," she clicked, "you must wear this. It will monitor your vital signs and genetic patterns. If something happens to you, at least we will have data to study." Taeho took the bracelet and put it on his wrist. It felt warm against his skin and began to glow with a soft blue light. "I still don't understand why everyone is so interested in me," Taeho said. "Yes, I survived something that should have killed me, but I'm still just a human. I'm not special." "You are wrong," Vilthari said. "What you did has never happened before in the history of the galaxy. You have proven that the most basic rule of existence can be broken. Do you understand what that means?" Before Taeho could answer, the station shook violently. Emergency lights began flashing, and the computer voice announced, "Foreign vessels have entered docking range. All personnel remain at emergency stations." Through the large windows of the docking bay, they could see 3 massive ships approaching. The first was a dark, angular vessel covered in weapons. That would be the Dominion military ship. The second was white and smooth, with sensor arrays covering its surface. The Science Collective research vessel, the 3rd ship, was unlike anything Taeho had ever seen. It seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making it hard to look at directly. Its shape kept changing, as if it could not decide what form to take. Just looking at it made Taeho feel cold and scared. "We need to leave now," Brick said. He started toward the shuttle, but stopped when alarms began ringing throughout the bay. "Attention Research Station Nexus 7, a voice boomed over the communication system. "This is General Voss of the Dominion 3rd Fleet. You will surrender the human subject Kim Taeho immediately, or we will take him by force." A different voice followed. "Station Nexus 7, this is Dr. Yuki Hwan of the Science Collective. We claim research rights to the genetic anomaly. The subject must be turned over to us for proper study." The 3rd ship remained silent. "3 different factions," Sojin whispered. "How are we supposed to get past all of them?" Taeho was about to answer when something strange happened. The bracelet on his wrist began to pulse faster, and the blue light grew brighter. He felt a sudden chill run through his body, as if something vast and cold was looking directly at him. For just a moment, he could swear he saw a tall figure standing in the shadows at the edge of the docking bay. The figure was wearing dark robes and had eyes that looked like dying stars, but when Taeho blinked, it was gone. "Did you see that?" he asked Sojin. "See what?" She replied, looking around the bay. Taeho realized that whatever he had seen, he was the only one who could see it. The thought made him even more afraid. Death had found him. The ancient entity had crossed the barrier between dimensions to take a closer look at this impossible human. What Death saw confirmed its suspicions. This was not just a fluke or accident. Kim Tae-ho had done something that changed the fundamental nature of reality itself, and Death wanted to know how the entity withdrew back to its realm between worlds, but it left a small part of its attention focused on the human. From now on, Death would be watching every move Tae-ho made. The three alien fleets moved closer to the station, each ready to claim their prize. But none of them knew that the most powerful force in the universe was also interested in Kim Tae-ho. The man who had escaped Death's grasp was about to learn that his survival had attracted the attention of Death itself. The first explosion shook Research Station Nexus 7 so hard that Tae-ho fell to his knees. Emergency lights flashed red and the sound of tearing metal echoed through the corridors. Through the docking bay windows he could see bright flashes as the three alien fleets began firing at each other. "They're fighting over you?" Commander Bricks said. His crystal body was now flashing bright orange, which meant extreme danger. "Each faction wants to capture you for themselves. We have to get out of here," Sojin said. She grabbed Tae-ho's arm and pulled him toward the emergency shuttle. Now, before they destroy the whole station, Dr. Velthari was already at the shuttle's control panel, her forearms moving quickly over the buttons. "The launch bay doors are sealed," she clicked. "The station's computer will not let any ships leave during combat." Another explosion rocked the station. This time, pieces of the outer wall began to crack and air started rushing out through the gaps. Emergency force fields activated to keep the atmosphere inside, but they flickered and looked weak. "I can override the door locks," Brick said. He moved to a different control panel and began entering codes. "But once we launch, all three fleets will chase us." "Better than staying here and getting killed," Tae-ho said. The bracelet on his wrist was pulsing faster now, and he felt that strange cold feeling again. Something was still watching him. Something that wasn't part of the battle outside. The shuttle doors opened with a hiss and they all climbed inside. The small ship had seats for 6 people and was designed for short trips between stations. It was not built for running from military fleets. Bricks's codes worked and the massive bay doors began to slide open. Beyond them, space was full of laser fire and explosions as the three fleets continued their battle. The Dominion ships were fast and heavily armed. The Science Collective vessel was larger and had powerful shields. The mysterious third ship moved through the battle like a shadow, seeming to avoid all the weapons' fire without even trying. "Hold on," Velthari said from the pilot's seat. "This will not be smooth." The shuttle shot out of the bay like a bullet. Immediately, alarms began ringing as all three fleets detected their escape. The Dominion ships were the first to react, turning their weapons toward the small shuttle. "Incoming missiles," Bricks announced, watching his scanner screen. 6 of them. Velthari threw the shuttle into a spinning dive that made Tae-ho's stomach feel sick. The missiles flew past them and exploded in bright flowers of light. "But more. We're coming. They don't want me alive," Tae-ho said. "They're trying to kill me." "No," Sojin said, pointing at her own scanner. "Look at the missile types. Those are capture nets, not explosives. They want to disable our ship and take you prisoner." The Science Collective vessel had stopped fighting the other ships and was now chasing the shuttle. It was much larger and faster than their small craft. Energy beams shot past their windows, trying to hit their engines without destroying the ship completely. "We cannot outrun them," Velthari clicked. "We need to reach the hyperspace jump point, but it is too far away. What about that asteroid field?" Tae-ho asked, pointing to a cluster of rocky debris floating near the dying star. "Can we hide in there?" "Too dangerous," Brick said. "The gravitational forces from the star make navigation impossible. Ships that go into that field are usually never seen again." Better than being captured," Tae-ho said. "At least we have a chance." Velthari looked at the approaching fleets, then at the dangerous asteroid field. "You are right. It is our only option." The shuttle turned sharply toward the field of spinning rocks. Behind them, the three fleets followed, but they spread out and moved more carefully. Even military ships were cautious around the gravitational anomalies near dying stars. As they entered the asteroid field, Tejo felt something strange happen. The bracelet on his wrist began to glow brighter, and he suddenly knew which way to turn to avoid the largest rocks. It was like he could sense the paths through the field before he could see them. "Turn left," he said quickly. "Now." Velthari followed his direction just as a massive asteroid tumbled through the space where they would have been. She looked at him with her large black eyes. "How did you know?" she asked. "I don't know," Tejo said. "I just felt it." They continued deeper into the field, with Tejo somehow guiding them through the maze of spinning rock and twisted gravity. Behind them, the pursuing ships were having trouble. The Dominion vessels were too big and heavy to navigate safely. Two of them collided with asteroids and had to retreat for repairs. The Science Collective ship was more careful, but it was also slower. It fell behind as Velthari followed Tejo's directions through increasingly dangerous passages between the rocks. The mysterious third ship was different. It seemed to flow through the asteroid field like water, never quite touching anything, always finding the safest path. "It was gaining on them, that ship," Brick said, watching his scanners. "It is not like anything in our databases. The way it moves. It is almost like it knows where every asteroid will be before it gets there." Tejo felt another chill run through him. He turned to look back at the pursuing ship, and for just a moment he could swear he saw that tall figure in dark robes standing on its bridge. The figure seemed to nod at him before fading away. "We need to get out of this field," Sojin said. "Our fuel is running low, and the ship's hull is taking damage from the gravitational stress." "There," Tejo said, pointing toward what looked like empty space. "We can exit there and jump to hyperspace." "I do not see an exit," Velthari said. "Trust me," Tejo said. "I can feel it." They flew toward the spot Tejo had indicated. At first it looked like they were heading straight for a wall of asteroids, but at the last second, the rocks shifted in their orbits and created a narrow passage. They shot through it and found themselves in clear space. "Hyperspace jump ready," Velthari announced. "Wait," Tejo said. "Something's not right." The mysterious third ship had also exited the asteroid field and was now directly in front of them. It was completely black and seemed to absorb all light that touched it. Looking at it made Tejo feel like he was staring into death itself. "It's not trying to capture me," Tejo realized. "It's just watching." A voice came over their communication system. It sounded like wind blowing through empty space. "Kim Tejo, we need to talk. Who are you?" Tejo asked. "I am someone who has been waiting a very long time to meet you. You have done something that should not be possible. I want to understand how?" The voice sent chills through everyone on the shuttle. It sounded ancient and patient and totally without emotion. "Jump to hyperspace," Tejo told Velthari. "Now, I cannot. The ship is creating some kind of interference field. Our hyperspace drive will not activate." The black ship moved closer. Tejo could feel something vast and cold studding him through the walls of their shuttle. Whatever was on that ship was not entirely alive, but it was not completely dead either. "You cannot run forever, Kim Tejo," the voice said. "We will meet again soon. And when we do, you will tell me how you escaped what no one has ever escaped before." Suddenly, the interference field disappeared. "Jump now," Velthari said, and activated the hyperspace drive. The stars stretched into lines of light as they escaped into hyperspace, but Tejo knew their mysterious pursuer was right. They could not run forever, and whatever was hunting him was far more dangerous than any alien military fleet. Death itself wanted answers, and Death was very patient. It would wait as long as necessary to get them. The abandoned space station floated in the empty void between galaxies like a ghost ship. It had been built by a race that died out millions of years ago, and now it served as a hiding place for those who needed to disappear from the universe. Tejo stood at the observation deck window, looking out at the endless darkness. They had been hiding here for 2 weeks, but he knew it would not last much longer. The strange dreams were getting stronger every night, and he could feel something vast and patient drawing closer. "The food supplies are running low," Sojin said as she joined him at the window. Velthari says we have maybe 3 more days before we have to leave. It won't matter, Teho said quietly. It knows where I am. It's been watching me this whole time. Sojin looked at him with worry in her eyes. Ever since their escape from the asteroid field, Teho had been different. He seemed to know things before they happened. He could sense danger from miles away. And sometimes, late at night, she found him talking to empty air as if someone invisible was standing there. Who is watching you? She asked Dot before Teho could answer. The lights in the station began to flicker. The temperature in the room dropped so fast that their breath became visible. Frost started forming on the windows and the metal walls. It's here, Teho whispered. A shadow began to form in the corner of the observation deck. At first it was just a dark spot that seemed to absorb the light around it. Then it grew taller and took the shape of a figure in flowing robes. The figure had no face that could be clearly seen, but its eyes glowed like dying stars. Sojin stepped backward in fear, but she could not see the figure clearly. To her, it was just a cold shadow that made her feel scared without knowing why. Kim Teho, the figure said in a voice like wind blowing through empty tombs. We meet at last. Your death? Teho said. It was not a question. He had known. This moment would come since the day he survived the impossible. I am what your kind calls death, yes, the figure replied. Though I am older than your words and more complex than your understanding, I am the end of all things, the final law of existence. Until you. Death moved closer, and Teho felt cold that went deeper than his bones, but he did not run or try to hide. Instead, he stood straight and looked directly at the ancient entity. Why? Are you here? Teho asked. If you wanted to kill me, you could have done it already. Kill you? Death sounded almost amused. I do not kill, Kim Teho. I simply collect what is already mine when the time comes, but you were mine 72 hours ago. The quantum virus should have delivered you to me. Instead, you slipped away. Death began to circle around Teho like a predator studying its prey. Do you understand what you have done? In all the billions of years I have existed, nothing has ever escaped me. Nothing. Stars die when I call them. Galaxies end when I decide their time is finished. But a simple human from a young world somehow said no to me. I didn't mean to, Teho said. I don't even remember doing it. That is what makes it so interesting, Death replied. You did not use magic or technology or divine power. You simply refused to accept that you were going to die. Your will to live was so strong that it changed the fundamental rules of reality. Death stopped circling and stood directly in front of Teho. Tell me, human, what were you thinking during those 72 hours when the virus was destroying? Your body? Teho closed his eyes and tried to remember. The memories came back slowly, like pieces of a dream. I was thinking about Sojin, about my work, about all the things I still wanted to do. I kept thinking that it wasn't fair, that I wasn't ready to die yet. And then? Then I got angry, Teho said, opening his eyes. I got angry at the virus, at the accident, at the unfairness of it all. I decided that I would not let it win. I would not give up, no matter what. Death nodded slowly. Your species fascinates me, Kim Teho. Other races accept death as natural and inevitable. They may fight against it, but they understand that resistance is temporary. Humans are different. You refuse to accept limits. You see the impossible, and decide to make it possible anyway. So what happens now? Teho asked. Are you going to force me to die? I could, Death said. Even with your new immunity, I am still far more powerful than you. But that would solve nothing. Your escape has already changed things. Other beings have heard of what you did. Some are trying to duplicate your success. The absolute nature of death is no longer absolute. Death moved to the window and looked out at the void between galaxies. For the first time in my existence, I find myself uncertain about the future. You have created a crack in the order of things. If left alone, that crack could grow until death itself becomes meaningless. What do you want from me? Death turned back to face him. I want to offer you a choice. First, you can accept death willingly. I will make it painless and peaceful. Your sacrifice will repair the damage you have done to the cosmic order. And the second choice? You can become my partner. Help me understand how humans think and feel. Guide me as I learn to adapt to this new reality you have created. In return, you will keep your immunity and live as long as you choose. Teho thought about both options. Neither one felt right to him. Is there a third choice? What do you mean? I mean, what if I refuse both options? What if I choose to stay as I am, but also take responsibility for what I've done? Death was silent for a long moment. Explain. You said my escape created a crack in the cosmic order. But maybe that crack was needed. Maybe the universe was too rigid before. What if death doesn't have to be absolute? What if there could be a new kind of balance? You would risk the stability of all existence for this idea? I would risk it. For the chance to make things better, Teho said. Not just for humans, but for everyone. Death should still exist for those who are ready for it. But for those who truly refuse to give up, who have the will to transcend their limits, maybe there should be another option. Death stared at him with those star-like eyes. You continue to surprise me, Kim Tae-ho. Very well, I will consider your third option. But know this, if you choose this path, you will be responsible for maintaining the new balance you create. Are you prepared for that burden? Yes, Tae-ho said without hesitation. Death began to fade back into shadow. Then we shall see what kind of universe your stubborn human will creates. This conversation is not over, Kim Tae-ho. We will meet again very soon. The cold lifted from the room and the lights returned to normal. Sojin rushed to Tae-ho's side, her face full of concern. What just happened? She asked. You were talking to someone, but I couldn't see anyone there. I was talking to death itself, Tae-ho said. And I think I just changed everything. The abandoned station shook violently as explosion after explosion rocked its ancient hull. Through the observation deck windows, Tae-ho could see the lights of dozens of alien ships surrounding them. The Dominion fleet had found them. The Science Collective had found them. And several other factions had joined the hunt. How did they track us here? Sojin asked as she held onto a support beam to keep from falling. They didn't track us, Tae-ho said grimly. Someone told them where we were. Commander Brix's crystal. Body was flashing bright red as he worked at a communication console. I'm getting signals from at least 5 different fleets. The Dominion, the Science Collective, the Temple Warriors, the Merchant Guild, and something calling itself the Purity Alliance. The Purity Alliance? Dr. Velthari clicked nervously. They are fanatics who believe that anything that breaks natural law must be destroyed. They want to kill you, not capture you. Another series of explosions shook the station. This time, pieces of the outer hull began to break away and drift into space. Emergency force fields activated, but they were weak and flickering. This station is too old, Brix announced. The shields cannot hold much longer. We need to evacuate. Where can we go? Sojin asked. They have us surrounded. Before anyone could answer, the temperature in the room dropped again. Frost formed on the windows and their breath became visible in the cold air. The shadow of death appeared in the center of the room, taller and more solid than before. The time for running is over, Kim Tae-ho, Death said in its voice like winter. Wind, your pursuers grow desperate. They will tear this station apart to get to you. This time, Sojin and the others could see Death more clearly. They stepped back in fear, but Tae-ho moved forward. You led them here, Tae-ho said. You want me to make a choice before they kill me. I want you to understand the consequences of your actions, Death replied. Look around you. See what your survival has caused. Wars are starting across the galaxy. Races that have been peaceful for thousands of years are building weapons. Everyone wants to either capture your power or destroy it. Through the windows, they could see the alien fleets firing at each other as well as the station. The Dominion ships were fighting the Science Collective vessels. The Temple Warriors were attacking anyone who came too close. The space around? The station was full of laser fire and missile explosions. This is what happens when the natural order is disrupted, Death continued. Chaos, violence, destruction. This is what happens when people are afraid, Tejo said firmly. They're not fighting because death isn't absolute anymore. They're fighting because they don't understand what's happening. And you think you can make them understand? I think I can try. Death moved closer, and Tejo felt that bone-deep cold again. Your time is running out. The station will not survive much longer. You must choose now. Accept death peacefully and restore order. Become my servant and help me control the chaos. Or continue your impossible existence and watch the universe burn. Tejo looked at his friends. Sojin was scared but still standing beside him. Commander Brix was trying to keep the station's systems working even though they were failing. Dr. Velthari was checking her medical equipment, ready to help anyone who got hurt. There's still a fourth option, Tejo said. I told you before there is no fourth option. Yes, there is. I refuse all three choices. I'm going to create something new. Death's star-like eyes flared brighter. You would gamble with the stability of existence itself? I'm not gambling, Tejo said. I'm evolving it. He walked to the communication console and activated the emergency broadcast system. His voice would now be transmitted to every ship in the area and through them to the rest of the galaxy. This is Kim Tejo, he said into the microphone. I know you're all here because of me. Because I survived something that should have killed me. You want to study me or capture me or kill me, but I have a better idea. The explosions outside began to slow as the alien fleet stopped firing to listen. I'm not special because I'm human, Tejo continued. I'm special because I refuse to give up. That's not a human trait, it's a living being trait. Any of you could do what I did if you had the will to try. Death stepped closer, its cold presence filling the room. What are you doing? I'm offering them the same choice you offered me, Tejo said. They can accept the old way, where death is absolute and final, or they can choose a new way, where determination and refusal to surrender can overcome any obstacle. He turned back to the microphone. I'm not asking you to worship me or fear me. I'm asking you to join me. Help me create a universe where the impossible becomes possible through sheer stubborn will. You cannot teach transcendence, Death said. It is not a skill that can be learned. Maybe not, Tejo admitted. But hope can be taught. Determination can be taught. The refusal to accept limitations can be taught. The communication system crackled with incoming messages. Some were angry, some were curious, some were afraid, but many were interested. I want to learn, came a voice from one of the Science Collective ships. My people have dreamed of transcending. Death for centuries, said another voice from the Temple Warriors. This could change everything, transmitted a third voice from the Merchant Guild, but not everyone was convinced. This is heresy against the natural order, declared the Purity. Alliance Commander, the human must be destroyed. The battle resumed, but now it was different. Some ships were fighting to protect the station while others attacked it. The galaxy was choosing sides. Death watched the chaos with ancient eyes. This is what you wanted? War and division? This is what change looks like, Tejo said. It's messy and scary and sometimes violent, but it's necessary. The station shook again, harder this time. Sections of the hull were breaking away and the artificial gravity was failing in some areas. We need to leave, Sojin said. Now, Death turned to face Tejo one last time. If you survive this, if you somehow create this new universe you dream of, you will be responsible for everything that happens. Every death, every birth, every moment of joy and suffering. Can you live with that burden? Tejo thought about all the people fighting outside, all the beings across the galaxy who were hearing his message, all the future generations who would live in whatever universe he helped create. Yes, he said simply. I can live with it. Death nodded slowly. Then perhaps it is time for me to learn something new as well. The ancient entity began to fade, but its voice remained clear. I will not help you, Kim Tejo. But I will not stop you either. Show me what your stubborn human can accomplish. As Death disappeared, the station's shields finally failed completely. But instead of dying in the vacuum of space, Tejo felt something new happening. His body began to glow with the same light he had seen in his DNA. And that light spread to protect his friends. The hunt was ending, but the real adventure was just beginning. 1 year later, Tahoe stood on the observation deck of the new station they had built in the space between galaxies. It was not like the old abandoned station they had hidden in. This one was alive with activity, filled with beings from dozens of different species who had come to learn about transcendence. The station was called Haven, and it had become the most important place in the known universe, not because it was the largest or most powerful, but because it represented something that had never existed before, a place where the impossible became possible through determination and will. "The morning class is ready for you," Sojin said, as she joined him at the window. She now served as the station's coordinator, helping to organize the thousands of beings who came seeking to learn the secret of transcending death. "How many today?" Tahoe asked. 43 students from 12 different species," Sojin replied, "including a group of young Dominion soldiers whose government officially denies they are here." Tahoe smiled. The Dominion still claimed that transcendence was impossible and dangerous, but secretly they were sending their best people to learn. The same was true of several other governments that publicly opposed the new movement. While privately trying to benefit from it, they walked through the corridors of Haven toward the main teaching hall. Along the way, they passed laboratories where Dr. Velthari and other scientists were studying the biological changes that occurred in beings who successfully transcended. They passed meditation rooms where temple warriors taught mental discipline techniques. They passed workshops where former merchant guild traders shared lessons about persistence and determination. The teaching hall was a large, circular room with seats arranged in levels around a central platform. The students came from many different worlds. Some looked like humans, others were insectoid or crystalline or gaseous. But they all had one thing in common. They refused to accept that death had to be final. "Welcome to Haven," Tahoe said as he stepped onto the central platform. "I know many of you have traveled far to be here. Some of you have risked your careers or your relationships with your families. You're here because you believe there has to be more to existence than just living until you die." A young being that looked like living metal raised one of its many arms. "Teacher Kim, is it true that anyone can transcend death if they try hard enough?" "No," Tahoe said honestly. "Transcending death is not about trying hard. It's about refusing to give up even when everything seems hopeless. Most beings, when faced with certain death, will eventually accept it. That's natural and normal. Transcendence only happens when someone is so stubborn, so determined to continue existing that they literally will not let reality stop them. But how do we develop that kind of determination?" asked a student that looked like a walking tree. "You can't develop it," Tahoe replied. "You either have it or you don't. What you can develop is the ability to recognize it in yourself when the time comes." An older being with blue skin and silver eyes spoke up. "My people have legends about warriors who refused to die in battle, but we always thought they were just stories." "They probably weren't stories," Tahoe said. "Transcendence has always been possible. I wasn't the first being to escape death, I was just the first one that death itself noticed. Throughout history, there have probably been individuals from many species who achieved some form of transcendence, but they were so rare that they became legends instead of facts." The class continued for 2 hours, with students asking questions about the nature of will, the relationship between consciousness and physical reality, and the practical aspects of living beyond normal mortality. When it was over, Tahoe felt tired but satisfied. Each class brought new insights, both for the students and for himself. As the students filed out, Commander Brix entered the hall. His crystal body was glowing with calm blue light, which meant he had good news to share. "The Council of Worlds has agreed to recognize Haven as a neutral territory," Brix announced. "We will no longer be subject to any single government's laws or military actions." "That's wonderful," Sojin said. "What changed their minds?" "The demonstration last month," Brix replied. "When the Purity Alliance attacked the station with their new reality-destroying weapons, and 12 of our students transcended together to create a shield that protected everyone. The council realized that we're not just teaching individuals to cheat death, we're creating a new form of collective defense. Teho nodded. The attack had been terrifying, but it had also proven something important. Transcendence was not just about individual survival. When beings who had overcome death worked together, they could protect others and create changes on a massive scale. Any word from death? Sojin asked. Not directly, Teho said, but I can feel its presence sometimes. It's watching what we're doing, learning from it. I think it's starting to understand that the universe needed to evolve. As if summoned by their conversation, the temperature in the hall began to drop. Frost formed on the windows and shadows gathered in the corners of the room. But this time, Death's appearance felt less threatening and more curious. Kim Tae-ho, Death's voice echoed through the hall. I have been observing your work. And, what do you think? Tae-ho asked. Death materialized more clearly than ever before, but its form was different. Instead of flowing robes, it now wore something that looked more like the simple clothes of a teacher or scholar. Its star-like eyes were still ancient and powerful, but they held warmth that had not been there before. I think you were right, Death admitted. The universe was too rigid, too absolute. Your stubborn refusal to accept limitations has created something beautiful. Only because you let it happen, Tae-ho said. You could have stopped me at any point. I could have, Death agreed. But that would have been the old way, forcing compliance with absolute rules. The new way requires cooperation and understanding. Death moved to the window and looked out at the stars. I have learned much from watching your species and others who have embraced transcendence. I have seen that the end of things does not have to be absolute. Sometimes the end of one thing can be the beginning of something better. So what happens now? Sojin asked. Now we continue to learn, Death replied. I will no longer be the absolute end of all things. Instead, I will be the guide who helps beings choose their own ending, whether that is peaceful acceptance of mortality or the difficult path of transcendence through determination. Death turned back to face them. Kim Tae-ho, you have created a new kind of universe, one where the impossible becomes possible for those brave enough to attempt it. I am proud to be part of this evolution. Thank you, Tae-ho said simply. Death began to fade away, but its voice remained clear. The real work is just beginning. You have shown that humans and other species can transcend death through will alone. Now you must show them how to transcend their other limitations as well. As Death disappeared, Tae-ho felt a sense of completion. The frightened researcher who had accidentally been exposed to a deadly virus was gone. In his place stood someone who had literally changed the fundamental nature of existence itself. But Death was right. The real work was just beginning. Throughout the galaxy, beings were learning that they did not have to accept the limitations that had always defined their existence. They were discovering that stubborn determination could overcome any obstacle, including death itself. The universe would never be the same. And that was exactly what it needed. Tae-ho looked out at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, other beings were probably making their own impossible discoveries, refusing to accept that something could not be done simply because it had never been done before. It was, he thought, a very human way to approach existence. And now it was becoming a universal way as well. The man who had escaped death's grasp had given the entire universe the same gift, the knowledge that nothing, not even death itself, had to be permanent for those stubborn enough to refuse it.